As much as I dislike it now, I really used to love My Hero. This imaginative world of unique powers was always a treat to behold. One of my longtime problems with the series, however, is that Horikoshi didn't utilize the unique powers very well. For the unfamiliar, people in the My Heroverse are born with a unique power called a quirk, where God spins a random wheel to decide whether or not you get to function in society or not. Take the case of Nirengeki Shoda and his quirk, Twin Impact. Twin Impact allows their user to, at the site of initial contact, create a second impact remotely and at their discretion. The second impact will be many times stronger than the first one. Sounds really cool and useful, right? He has not been seen outside of a flashback for almost 100 chapters. This is what I'm talking about. Instead of cool abilities like this, we get tape. On top of this, I happen to be on social media, and I keep seeing screenshots of background characters like Lego Head or Windex Man, or the dude from the first episode with the stars on the side of his head. Some of these seem like they would make life actually terrible. So eventually, I had two questions. What is the most underutilized quirk, and what is objectively the worst quirk in My Hero Academia? I took all 314-ish known quirks from My Hero and I put them onto this spreadsheet. Each quirk then received 2 scores, although one of them is a little more important than the other one. The quirk score is how good the quirk is when it comes to super society. Does your ability make you an unbeatable monster? Dope, you get a good score. This is based on the quirk alone. The user does not make a difference. Also important, supporting gear isn't allowed. Sorry, Shinzo. The second score is a convenience score. If you're given this ability right now in our world, how much easier would it make your life in general? Assuming you aren't going to go around murdering people or whatever. And just for clarification's sake, here's how the numbers map to my judgment specifically. I'll also put a timestamp here in the video description so you can jump back at any point. With all that being said, let's jump right in. First things first, this might be a bit of a take, but One for All is kinda dog shit. If you are the first or second user, you get super strength at the cost of your body until you learn how to use it. That's it. This is only okay for Midoriya because Recovery Girl is 10 feet that way. I can name a ton of quirks that give you super strength, albeit to a lesser degree, but you know, you get to keep your bones? Here, I have the list. Body bulk, bruiser, charging muscles, endurance, energy suck, Fajin, heavy payload, muscle augmentation, muscle expansion, new order if you want, but we're definitely coming back to new order later. Physical enhancement, power, stock if you set it up a little bit, and finally, strong arm. The second user was only good because they had a quirk already. From the third user on, it becomes viable, but if you have a quirk before it gets passed on to you, you get what? 20 years before you kick the bucket? I will admit the side ability of it buffing any quirks it picks up along the way is pretty neat, but if you get this ability early on and you aren't a good vessel for it, you'll blow your arm off. Since I'm already on the topic of One for All, let's reverse those letters. All for One is similarly shit, but to a much lesser degree. This quirk is entirely dependent on what you steal from others, so you could essentially be a regular guy, or you could be an unstoppable monster. Of the quirks that All for One has possessed at some point or another, being used by All for One or Shigaraki, on average their quirk score is a 5.5, but their everyday utility is only a 2.96. Of these quirks, the highest and lowest quirk score are New Order and Hypertrophy. I realize we might have started a little too close to the characters. Let's take a few steps back and look at society at large. When looking at every power in the series, the average quirk score is 5.01, with everyday utility being a measly 2.1, giving us an overall average score of 3.58. Now, let's break this down a little further. Quirks in My Hero are classified into one of 3 archetypes. Emitter quirks, people who can shoot stuff and move things. These guys make up the large majority of quirk users, totaling 57.7% of the population. Transformation quirks, people whose quirks affect their bodies but can be turned on and off, has 21.7% of the population. Finally, there are mutation quirks, people whose quirks affect their bodies but are permanent. Surprisingly to me at least, mutation quirks have the least amount of representation, only 21.1% of the population. The rest of these numbers are spread out pretty even actually. Emitters have the best everyday utility score and the second best quirk score. Mutations have the worst quirk score at 4.46, and surprisingly to me at least, transformation quirks are okay until you look at the everyday utility. 1.37 is a lot lower than I was expecting, but I guess it makes sense. I don't think you need to turn into a whale every day. Zooming back into specific groups and characters, let's look at UA. Of Class 1A, the worst quirk is, drumroll please, Hagakuri's invisibility. This quirk turns the body entirely invisible, forever, and only her body. She's developed an ultimate move where she just flashbangs her opponents, but that's it. You can't wear clothes, so heaven forbid you have to do a mission in the cold, or in the rain, or a mission where you need to walk around in a city a whole lot. Hagakure gets a quirk score of 2 and an everyday utility score of 10, if you're a creep. The best quirk is a bit of a tie for me. The best quirk score is Todoroki's Half Cold Half Hot, being the only ability in the class that got a 10, although it has one of the lowest everyday utilities at a 1. The high score all around was actually Uraraka. The Zero Gravity quirk is surprisingly effective in combat. There aren't any drawbacks other than the nausea, and being able to make anything weightless could be super convenient in the day-to-day. The brightest might have forgot about my girl, but I didn't. There are some other weird cases in Class 1A that I want to take a look at. Mina Ashido's quirk seems good until you realize that her skin naturally loses resistance to the corrosion ability when she produces too much in rapid succession. The tail guy shouldn't have made it into 1A. Dark Shadow is either a 3 or an 8 because it's really viable, but it's too easy to lose control. Denki used to be one of my favorite characters, but I hate his quirk because you can't aim it without any extra equipment. On top of this, he can short out. There's actually a quirk that's the same thing, except you can aim it! So I gave that one a 9 as opposed to Denki's 3. Naval Laser can leak out if he isn't wearing the belt. Here's how the other members of 1A stack up if you're curious. The class in general is pretty good too, averaging 5.7 for quirk score and 2.47 for everyday utility. Looking at UA 1B, they're on average just a little worse with their quirk and utility scores, averaging 5.6 and 1.95 respectively. What 1B lacks in sheer power, they make up for with the fact that their quirks are so much more interesting to me, mainly because some of them are actually moronic. The worst quirk is easily Kinoko Komori's mushroom ability. You get to make mushrooms appear, but they don't do anything special. They're simply there. What function does this serve literally at all for any purpose in hero work? You get a quirk score of 2 and a utility score of 0. Twin Impact, the quirk I mentioned at the start of this video, got a quirk score of 8 and a utility of 3. The best quirk in 1B is Reiko Yanagi's Poltergeist. It's just telekinesis, straight up. There is a weight limit, but we don't know if there's a maximum item count. Naito Monomo's copy takes a lot of setup, but it could be anywhere from a 6 to a 10, so I'm giving it the 6. I think Solid Air could be really cool, but it's pretty easy to break through. And Lizard Tail Splitters, whatever, but you can lose the body parts if they're split up for too long. Something I never thought would happen, there are a whopping 37 quirks that got 10s in their utility scores. A good chunk of them are there because they give the user the ability to fly, so if we take out those, there are 21 left. Extra quickly, those are Attraction of Small Objects, Clones, Creation, Double, Energy Saver, Float, Foresight, Glamour, Glycerin, Heal, High Spec, IQ, Life Force, Meta Manipulation, New Order, Overclock, Overhaul, Pointer, Poltergeist, Super Generation, Telepath, and finally, Warp Gate. As I'm recording this, I realized I forgot to put Zero Gravity in there, so I guess I did forget about Uraraka. Furthermore, there are 4 quirks that got perfect scores, those being Double, New Order, Overhaul, and Whirlwind. Enough about the good powers, because some of these are actually so shitty. Chest hair. The wiki doesn't even know what this one does. It just does something with this chest hair. Soccer. The quirk Soccer allows you to maneuver a soccer ball in crowded areas. Bighorn gives you a set of horns. That's it. They don't do anything. They don't grow back. If they're hurt, they're just there. And even worse than those, there are abilities that are actively detrimental to the user. There are 4 abilities: Rupture, Burst, Self-Detonate, and Suicide Bomb, that do exactly what they sound like. They just blow you up! You don't reform, you don't survive. The only person to live past using one of these abilities was a Nomu that had a second power that put their body back together. But if you want an even stupider answer, something even weirder, I present to you this. Sumuji Kazutane from the fucking card game. He has a quirk called Fan. Fan allows a user to create wind or even tornadoes from their wrists by spinning them at incredible speeds. However, if they use it for more than a minute, they risk suffering tendinitis. You get 1 minute, or you get a medical condition. How moronic. I hope you're not misunderstanding my point here. I'd much rather watch Sero the Tape Man come up with a really cool strategy to beat a villain than to watch Deku go plus ultra and punch him extra fucking hard for the 5th season in a row. The problem I have is that Horikoshi will introduce these really interesting characters. Some of them have really cool abilities, some of them have really niche and situational ones, some of them can make mushrooms. And we're watching Midoriya. For example, take the case of Star and Stripes. Manga spoilers from this chapter and ahead. I don't know the chapter number off the top of my head. Go to this timestamp to skip it. 3, 2, 1, I can't be blamed if you hear this anymore. For ages, the community had been wanting to see what hero society was like outside of Japan. I'm not counting the movies, fuck you. What are the American heroes like? What are the European heroes like? Are there black people other than Rocklock in this fucking show? So then we get Star and Stripes, who's a really interesting character with a great power, a great design, and they could be a really cool long-term hero. Oh, she fucking died? So what was the point? Also, horseshit she lost that fight. That was such an ass pull, fuck you. Welcome back, non-spoiler people. But yeah, that's the main reason I fell out of love with My Hero. To be fair, I have not read Vigilantes. I've heard it's good, but I can't be fucked to read it. So, L for me, I guess. That's all I've got for you today. This was basically just a runaway idea that I turned into a spreadsheet. Oh, speaking of the spreadsheet, I'm going to leave that in the description of this video so you can see how your favorite characters stacked up. Let me know if you think I'm wrong or if I should have rated them higher. I'm always open to discussion. Speaking of discussions and shit, leave a comment. I'd love to see what you thought of this video. This isn't normally what I do, but I did have a really fun time with it, so I'd be more than happy to do it again. But, you know, you can let me know if you liked it. Also, make sure you like and share the video with someone who you think would enjoy it. Also, make sure you subscribe. I've got another big video coming out. I'm not going to say relatively soon. I'm working on it. It's coming. It's going to be big. But yeah, I'm Nightly, even incredible. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.